Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the sumptuous lobby of the Hotel Grand Meridian, the white marble reflected the light from the sparkling chandeliers. Customers whispered, some laughed softly, while employees glided silently between the majestic columns. Everything seemed perfect, luxurious, until Emma Lawson entered. Emma, an influential and arrogant woman, walked with imposing confidence, her heels echoing like a warning. Her eyes scanned every person in the lobby until she came across an elegant black man waiting quietly near the reception desk. She narrowed her eyes, an unwarranted sense of suspicion crossing her face. "Evict him," she ordered coldly to the police officer in the hotel. "I don't want that guy here." The man, Marcus Reynolds, remained perfectly calm. He smiled slightly, as if he had already anticipated this kind of reaction. But Emma had no idea. Marcus wasn't just a customer, he was the owner of this hotel, a respected entrepreneur who had built his empire from nothing. In a matter of moments, what should have been a small, arrogant whim would turn into a public humiliation for Emma, and a resounding display of dignity and justice for Marcus. The marble of the hall seemed to vibrate with tension. Today, the truth would come out, and no one would emerge unscathed. The sun was beginning to set over the city, casting golden reflections on the hotel windows. Grand Meridian in the lobby, luxury was everywhere. White marble columns rose to the ceiling, glittering chandeliers illuminated the Persian rugs, and the subtle scent of fresh flowers wafted through the air. Guests passed by, some silently admiring the decor, others chatting in hushed voices. Emma Lawson entered like a queen into her kingdom. Dressed in a vibrant red dress and stiletto heels, she strode confidently, each step echoing in the lobby. Her eyes swept the room and settled on a calm, elegant black man waiting by the reception desk. His serene face betrayed a quiet confidence. Emma immediately felt a mixture of anger and contempt. In her mind, this man shouldn't be there, as if he didn't belong in this world of luxury. Without thinking, she addressed the hotel police officer patrolling nearby. "Do you see that man? He must leave immediately. Expel him." The young, uncomfortable police officer slowly approached Marcus Reynolds, trying to understand the situation. Marcus looked up and remained calm. "Madam, I believe there is a mistake. I am here with complete legitimacy." Emma burst out laughing, haughty and cruel. "Mistake? No, he's the one who doesn't belong here. Do your job." The lobby stood still for a moment. The murmurs of customers had died down, and the employees were quietly moving closer, observing the scene. Marcus remained straight, polite, and replied softly. "I'm Marcus Reynolds, owner of this hotel." "I think you've got the wrong person." Emma blanched slightly, but refused to show surprise. Her natural arrogance prompted her to continue. "Landlord or not, I don't want him here. Do as I say." The police officer hesitated, torn between his respect for protocol and his fear of causing a scene. Tension rose in the lobby, palpable like a sword hanging over everyone's heads. Marcus then calmly took out his phone and began recording the scene. A shudder ran through the hall. No one yet knew how much this day would change. You Hallelujah Grand Meridian. It was silent, but the air was thick with tension. The employees and customers present watched the scene with curiosity and apprehension. Emma Lawson, flushed with anger, would not listen. "I don't want an apology. I want him gone immediately," she yelled, pointing at Marcus as if she were pointing at a criminal. Marcus, still calm, crossed his arms and replied gently but firmly. "Madam, you are mistaken. I am Marcus Reynolds, the owner of this hotel. You have no right to treat me this way." Emma snickered, finding it ridiculous that this man had power over her. "Landlord or not, I don't want you here. I decide who can stay and who can't." The hotel policeman, visibly uncomfortable, approached Marcus. "Sir, can you show me some ID, just to confirm?" Marcus calmly took out his wallet and showed his papers, but he didn't need to. Every gesture, every word, exuded a confidence that was beginning to make Emma uncomfortable. Look around you, Marcus said in a clear, calm voice. I'm the one who runs this hotel. Everything you see here is my responsibility. Emma felt a shiver of worry. The customers were beginning to whisper, some smirking, amused by her arrogance. She clenched her fists, unable to admit she'd been wrong. You're a liar, she yelled. I'm going to call the police. Marcus then took out his phone and began recording the scene. Very well, madam. If you want to call someone, do so. But know one thing, I will not leave this hotel for you. The policeman, now aware of the situation, stepped back slightly. The crowd around him was beginning to sense that something was wrong. The air vibrated with an almost electric tension. Emma, unable to comprehend the gravity of her situation, continued to scream, but her words lost their power as the truth began to reveal itself. The moment when the humiliation would turn against her was fast approaching. Hallelujah Grand Meridian had become the scene of a heavy silence. The murmurs of the customers had fallen silent, replaced by a palpable curiosity. Marcus Reynolds, always calm, held his phone in his hand, ready to record every moment. Emma Lawson felt a slight panic for the first time. Her natural arrogance was beginning to waver. She didn't understand why this man remained so calm, even in the face of her anger. A few minutes later, a team of lawyers arrived, alerted by Marcus. One of them stepped forward and said to the police officer, "Sir, we ask you not to act. Let the situation unfold under legal supervision." The policeman instinctively stepped back, sensing something was beyond his control. The customers present began to look at Marcus differently, some exchanging surprised and intrigued glances. Marcus turned to Emma, his expression calm but icy. "Madam, I think you're ignoring one essential fact. I am the owner of this hotel. Everything you see here belongs to me. And I've never been so offended in my life." Emma paled. Her face, red with anger just moments earlier, turned livid. She opened her mouth, searching for a word, a reply, but none came. Panic was slowly replacing her pride. Marcus continued, his voice calm but sharp. "I understand that you may feel justified in doing this, but you are seriously mistaken. And you are publicly humiliating yourself." The customers present began to whisper among themselves. Phones were coming out, some were filming the scene, and the lobby seemed to vibrate with a new tension. Emma, who had been confident until then, realized she had just lost all control. You can't." She stammered, unable to finish her sentence. Marcus tilted his head slightly and smiled, almost compassionately. "Madam, the truth always has a way of revealing itself. Today, it has revealed itself to you." The entire hall held its breath. Emma, once so confident, found herself alone facing her own mistake, while Marcus, in control of the situation, displayed a calm that seemed to reinforce his power in the eyes of all. The moment of Emma's public humiliation had just begun. Hallelujah Grand Meridian was now filled with an almost palpable tension. Guests had gathered around the scene, some curious, others shocked by the arrogance of the woman who dared to challenge the hotel owner. Emma Lawson, red with anger and shame, tried to regain control. "You have no right to humiliate me here." His words trembled, and each syllable seemed to accentuate his embarrassment rather than alleviate it. Marcus Reynolds, standing in the center of the hall, crossed his arms with an almost regal calm. His voice was clear, calm, and echoed throughout the room. "Madam, I'm not humiliating you. I'm simply standing up for the truth. And the truth is, you're wrong on every count." The guests present began to whisper among themselves, some taking out their phones to record the scene. The hotel staff, who had previously been discreet, looked at Marcus with silent admiration. Even the police officer, who had seemed hesitant just moments earlier, remained in the background, aware of the importance of the situation. Marcus took a step forward, slowly, to get everyone's attention. "Before you judge someone, make sure you know the truth. I built this hotel from scratch, with patience, hard work, and respect for every person here. And you, madam, tried to judge me without knowing anything about me. Emma felt panic rise within her. The whispers turned to murmurs of dismay. The customers exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disapproval. Her attempt to control the situation was backfiring in the most public way possible. But I just wanted. She stammered, desperately searching for an excuse that might save her honor. Marcus cut her off gently but firmly. Madam, there is no excuse for judgment based on prejudice and hatred. Every action has its consequences. A heavy silence fell over the hall. Emma, usually the master of all social situations, found herself at the mercy of the gaze of everyone around her. Cameras and cell phones immortalized the moment, the arrogant woman publicly humiliated by the man she had believed to be weak. The show had just begun, and everyone in the hall understood that this day would mark a turning point in Emma's life, and in that of Marcus, who, with calm and dignity, had transformed an attempted humiliation into a resounding triumph. Hallelujah! Grand Meridian was now filled with curious stares and silent expectations. Marcus Reynolds, always calm and elegant, turned to the gathered staff and customers, including Emma, whose face expressed anger mixed with shame. "Let me tell you a story," Marcus began, his voice calm but clearly echoing throughout the hall. 20 years ago, I was exactly where you, ma'am, would have put me, invisible, judged, and undervalued. I started with nothing at all, except a vision and the courage to pursue it. The customers leaned in slightly, captivated. Emma tensed more and more. Every word Marcus said seemed to demean her further, not out of malice, but out of truth. I worked hard, never resorting to arrogance or judgment of others. And today, I own this hotel, which I built stone by stone. Every employee you see here, every satisfied guest, every moment of calm and luxury in this lobby, all of this is the fruit of perseverance, respect, and dignity. The murmur of staff and customers turned into an admiring silence. Marcus looked over at Emma, who was clenching her fists, unable to utter a word. "Madam," he said finally, his tone firm but still courteous, "you tried to judge me without knowing anything about me. You believed that your status and your money would be enough to impose your will. But the truth has its own force." Emma took a step back, helpless. Her eyes searched desperately for a way out, but there was none. The crowd around her began to whisper, some smiling as they saw arrogance turn to shame. Marcus made a final gesture, almost paternal. "This lesson is not for me, but for all those who believe that hatred and judgment can dominate truth and merit. In this hall today, you see what dignity and respect can accomplish." The policeman, who was still watching from the sidelines, realized that he could never act against Marcus without making a fool of himself. Emma, for her part, felt that her arrogance had just been completely shattered, while Marcus, with sovereign calm, had just transformed an attempt at humiliation into a dazzling demonstration of power and respect. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath, knowing that this moment would be etched in their memories. Hallelujah! Grand Meridian was now transformed into a silent theater. Every customer, every employee, seemed to hang on Marcus Reynolds's words and gestures. Emma Lawson, once so sure of herself, felt crushed by the situation. Her face, once bursting with pride, was now red with shame and suppressed anger. Marcus, standing in the center, calmly observed the crowd and said, "I believe some people need to see for themselves that power comes not from wealth or status, but from dignity, hard work, and respect." At that precise moment, several customers took out their phones and began filming. The whispers quickly turned to murmurs of dismay, then to stifled laughter at Emma's arrogant attitude. Emma tried to regain control, her voice trembling. You can't do that." Marcus answered him calmly, each word weighing like a sentence. "I'm not doing anything, madam. I'm simply standing tall in the face of injustice and arrogance. What you call humiliation is actually just a reflection of your own actions." The hotel employees, usually discreet and polite, began to whisper among themselves, exchanging admiring glances at Marcus and reproachful glances at Emma. Even the police officer, who had initially hesitated, felt a deep respect for Marcus's handling of the situation. Emma felt her social standing crumbling. Her attempts at justification and threats now seemed futile. Cameras and cell phones immortalized every moment of her public defeat. Marcus, with a final, grave look, concluded. Today you have seen what it means to judge someone without knowing the truth. I hope this lesson will be useful to you, madam. Emma looked away, unable to respond, as the crowd returned to its normal activity, but with a newfound respect and silent admiration for Marcus. She left the hall, humbled, aware that this moment would remain etched in the memories of all present. The luxury of the hotel had never been so silent, but never so powerful in its demonstration of justice and truth. You Hallelujah Grand Meridian. The crowd was slowly calming down, but the air remained thick with the intensity of the incident. The customers were returning to their seats, some still whispering about Emma's past arrogance and Marcus's dignity. Emma Lawson, meanwhile, stood in a corner, trembling and silent. The anger that had animated her words a few hours earlier had turned into a mixture of shame and regret. She finally understood that her attempt at domination had turned into public humiliation, and that her social status was worthless in the face of truth and merit. Marcus, still calm, addressed the hotel employees and guests. What you just saw isn't just a lesson for Mrs. Lawson. It's a lesson for all of us. Respect and dignity always trump arrogance and prejudice. The hotel staff exchanged admiring glances. Even the police officer, who had initially been called to act on Emma's orders, felt deeply humbled by the way Marcus had handled the situation. Marcus then walked towards Emma, but without animosity. Madam, you can choose to leave in anger and humiliation, or you can learn from this experience. Life teaches us its lessons in the most unexpected ways. Emma looked down, unable to come up with a response. Marcus's words resonated with her like an echo she couldn't ignore. She realized she'd been blinded by his arrogance and prejudice, and that this day would remain etched in her memory forever. As Marcus returned to his business, the staff and customers began to quietly applaud, not only for him, but for the quiet strength he represented. Marcus's reputation as a fair and respectful man had just been greatly enhanced. Emma finally left the hall, her arrogance erased, leaving behind a mixture of silent respect for Marcus and the bitter weight of her own mistake. The hotel's luxury still shone, but now it also symbolized the triumph of truth, respect, and dignity over arrogance and injustice. A few hours after the incident, the lobby of the Grand Meridian had regained his composure. Marcus Reynolds continued his daily activities with his usual dignity, while Emma Lawson had returned home, still reeling from her public defeat. But the situation was far from over. Customers who had witnessed the incident filmed and shared the videos on social media. Within minutes, they had gone viral. The footage clearly showed Emma's arrogance and Marcus's impressive calm. Comments poured in, some praised Marcus for his dignity, others criticized Emma for her unfair and racist behavior. Emma, who believed her influence could protect her, realized that this time, the whole world could see what she had done. The notifications on her phone kept piling up, messages of public criticism, shared posts, and local media articles reporting the incident. It's impossible. I can't believe it happened like this. She whispered in disbelief. Meanwhile, Marcus was receiving messages of praise. Regular customers, business partners, and even strangers praised his patience, his quiet strength, and his way of handling the situation without ever losing his cool. His reputation as a fair and respectful leader had grown considerably. Emma tried to respond, sending messages and emails to explain her side of the story, but this only made her situation worse. The public, now witnessing Marcus's humiliation and lecture, wanted nothing to do with it. Her once impeccable social image was beginning to crumble under the weight of her own arrogance. On the streets, in offices, and even in the social circles she frequented, Emma's name was now associated with public humiliation and injustice. Marcus, on the other hand, had become a symbol, one who defends dignity, truth, and respect in the face of prejudice. Emma realized painfully that some mistakes could not be undone. The world had seen her fall, and the lesson she had just learned would remain etched in the collective memory. Real power lay not in money or status, but in courage and dignity. And Marcus Reynolds had just demonstrated that to the world. A few days after the incident, Marcus Reynolds decided to turn the page, but in his own way. He organized a private party at the Grand Meridian, inviting employees, a few influential customers and local journalists. The goal was not to take revenge, but to celebrate respect, merit, and dignity. The invitations were carefully chosen. All those who had witnessed the scene and who appreciated its integrity received a personal note from Marcus. Emma, despite her attempts to invite herself or influence someone, received nothing. Her social reputation was beginning to crumble, and her isolation was becoming evident. During the evening, Marcus spoke to his guests. "Tonight, I wish to celebrate those who work with honesty and respect, and to remind everyone that dignity always triumphs over arrogance. Everyone here contributes to this success, not through status or wealth, but through hard work and integrity." The staff and guests applauded, admiring the man who had transformed a potentially humiliating situation into a powerful message for all. The journalists present took notes and photographed Marcus, highlighting in their articles his wisdom and calm in the face of arrogance. Emma, who had tried to regain power through contacts and emails, realized that all her attempts were in vain. She looked at social media and press articles. Everywhere, Marcus was celebrated, and his name, Emma's, appeared associated with shame and prejudice. She realized bitterly that arrogance and hasty judgment brought her nothing. Marcus, on the other hand, had transformed injustice into triumph, leaving a striking lesson for all who had observed it. That evening, Emma felt for the first time the full weight of her mistake. Isolated, humiliated, and unable to control her image, she saw Marcus radiate respect and admiration, winning not only the game, but also the awareness and support of everyone around her. The Grand Meridian was no longer just a luxury hotel, it had become a symbol of the triumph of dignity over arrogance. A few weeks after the incident, the Grand Meridian had once again become a symbol of luxury and calm, but it now also bore the imprint of respect and justice. Marcus Reynolds continued to run the hotel with the same dignity and precision as on the first day, earning the admiration of staff, guests, and partners. Emma Lawson, meanwhile, had become a name associated with shame and arrogance. Everywhere she went, people remembered her humiliating behavior, and videos of the incident still circulated on social media. Her attempts to restore her image were failing, and she realized that some mistakes are irreversible. Marcus, on the other hand, had become a living example of what it means to control a situation with calm, intelligence and dignity. His reputation had spread beyond the walls of the hotel, and his actions were celebrated in the media as a model of justice and respect in the face of injustice and prejudice. One evening, as Marcus gazed into the illuminated hall of the Grand Meridian, he smiled softly. He knew that his victory was not only personal, but symbolic. Truth and dignity can always triumph, even in the face of arrogance and injustice. Emma, on the other hand, now had to live with the bitter lesson that wealth, status, or hatred are never enough to overcome someone with courage and self-respect. Her fall was complete, and Marcus, always calm and self-possessed, had transformed this moment of injustice into a resounding triumph. The Grand Meridian, majestic and imposing, shone brighter than ever. But it wasn't just luxury that now impressed visitors, it was the power of dignity and truth embodied by Marcus Reynolds, a man who knew how to show that respect and justice are always victorious.